So if you're Phil Spencer, what do you do to win E3?
It's just games. Like you spend very limited portions of time on like your television initiatives.
Yeah.
You know, say like, oh yeah, by the way, that Halo TV show's still coming. Here's a trailer. Anyway, games.
Right.
And just
But
really.
if you show all, if you just show wall-to-wall games, we got all these great games. Here's a bunch of new first-party games. Here's third-party games. Is that enough, or is there still the elephant in the room of like, how are they going to get their mojo back?
Right. Well, I think that depends on what games they have.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
and I think that you know, they can lock down some third-party exclusives, just spend a little more. They've got more money to spend than Sony does when it comes to that sort of stuff. So, you know, they could go out and lock up some stuff that way. That tends to breed a little bad blood, but you know, at this point, I feel like they have to do something.
Right.
I think that they'll try to make good on their. You know, their indie plans.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if I saw something that looked like last year's Sony presentation. If it's like, here's 8 developers up here on stage. By the way, we just came up with this idea to do this, and that sort of thing. Like I'm sure that they'll try to make the indie stuff more meaningful than they did last year. And you know, they'll have a Gears of War teaser trailer, and it'll be like, oh right, Chainsaw, they're still making that or something. You know, just throw that out there. Forza Horizon 2, you know, probably be there, and you know, they'll have big names from the Microsoft franchises that you care about.
But this is a year, you know, presumably without a hardware reveal, or I guess maybe there could be a new version of some of these boxes. But you know, there's so much hype, and these, you know, the hype train has left the station with all the gamers in terms of what they're expecting at E3 from these companies. Is there any way, you know, Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo are going to be able, do you think, to meet the expectations, or is it just going to be a bunch of games?
Well, in a sense, that would fill the platform, which is what we need.
Okay.
Because for the most part, my consoles are kind of sitting there collecting dust,
Yeah.
unless I'm watching Netflix or something or other. So really, if there were games to be playing, and if there were these opportunities to like have multiplayer experiences, like all of these things that they've been touting from day one, like you can share this clip, wasn't it awesome? And I was doing a little bit of that with like Titanfall, for instance. So we just need more of that. We need to get the ball rolling. We got a taste of it, and now we need to really integrate that into our gaming lives, essentially.
Right. All right, so if they do that, then I guess they'll start to get back on track with this audience. Do you think, Jeff, there's still a way that you could see, you know, Microsoft pulling ahead of Sony this year? Like, what would they have to do?
Just in terms of numbers and stuff like that?
Well, numbers are just perception, generally.
Perception, I think if they get the right games out there and, you know, just some well-placed acknowledgments that the system is, you know, maybe a little difficult to develop for right now. Like that's the thing that you kind of hear out of developers, like, oh, the ESRAM this, ESRAM that. You know, if they get their tools to a place where that's no longer an issue, and they can get developers saying like, they have fixed the problems, and we're kind of pulling ahead here and doing what we need to do on this platform, I think that'll really go a long way. Right. I think we're getting to a point where these press conferences, like now that the hardware is out of the way, that they are less meaningful than they have been in a really long time.
Well, that's what I'm just wondering, is there's so much kind of air in the balloon that's about to burst with excitement that they're going to reveal all this stuff, and you know, sure they can talk about Halo or Gears of War and show.
But like like realistically,
Call
what
of Duty
could they have? It could be some off-the-wall peripheral, but it'll just more
I
likely
wonder
be
with your
a
idea,
bunch of games.
You know, about upgrading the system. I mean, no, people haven't typically done that, but you look at something like a Steam box or whatever. It's like
or
do
an
consoles
iPhone
eventually? Exactly, iPhone. You get like a car or an iPhone where you can upgrade every year. It's like, could they say, hey, you know, now Xbox One is, you know. I'm sure some people would riot if they're like, hey, you know, now I got to buy it. Buy another Xbox One.
It might be insanely expensive for everyone.
But I remember they did that with the with Xbox 360. They added the HDMI port. I think it was like in year 2 or something like that, because it originally didn't ship with one. So it's like, I don't know, would they do something like that and have a trade-in program? Or it's, I mean, seems pretty radical, but
or you know, or maybe they give up on some of their TV dreams and just like, well, to cut costs and get where we need to be, it only has one HDMI port now. Like it doesn't do the TV pass through, or you know, like start to scale back on some of those things that just don't necessarily seem to be working out in their favor.
You run your TV through your Xbox too?
Yeah, no, I actually don't even have cable, so it's completely different for myself. But I imagine I would, and I've experimented with a little bit on other people's consoles. It just doesn't seem to work very well. Yeah, and that's a problem, especially for people who aren't totally accustomed to these platforms. It needs to be easy to navigate, and it just isn't. It's breaking all the time. You have to resync all the time, and they came out with the remote, which helps, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
The idea that I have to turn on my Xbox just to watch television, that it doesn't just pass through when the Xbox is turned off, insane.
Yeah, and also, you know, as you said, it's like it's a cool feature, but are people going to pay $500 for that? Probably not. All right, well, we will see what Microsoft has when Phil Spencer and the team are live on stage. We'll be airing it on Spike and right here on GT on Monday, June the 9th. So tune in for that. We'll be back next week to talk more about what Sony will have in store for E3 2014.